Hello again, everyone. John Flynn here from Flynn Real Estate, serving Southern Ontario, based out of the Niagara region. Here once again to give you my honest and professional opinion regarding the 2023 Canadian housing market. So this week, Statistics Canada, for the first time, just released residential real estate investor information for 5 of the provinces. Finally, we have some data to back up what I've been saying all along. Excess demand was the root cause and was driven by investors. One other thing you have to ask yourself is, why did suddenly the government undertake such a study? I believe the answer is obvious. Because they knew investor purchasing and speculation was the underlying reason for runaway real estate prices. So let's look at the key points and data from this release. And of course, the link is in the description. Let's get right into it. Residential real estate investors and investment properties in 2020. For the first time, the Canadian Housing Statistics Program is publishing data on investors. So the study was as of 2020. It's not just for properties purchased in that year, it's for all owned property in the 5 provinces included in the study. And a couple of key findings where the proportion of investors among owners varied from 20.2% in Ontario to 31.5% in Nova Scotia. Condominium apartments were used as an investment more often than houses, single detached homes, semi-detached houses, row houses, and mobile homes. Ontario topped the list with the highest rate of condo apartments used as investment at 41.9%. Wow, over 40% of condos in Ontario are investments. That's crazy, but not unbelievable, considering I remember developers exclusively inviting investors to pre-construction sales events because they were easy sells and would literally just walk in and show up with their deposit check and sign the contract. When properties are owned by investors, they can contribute to the rental housing supply and therefore meet the population's need for rental housing, but can also limit the number of properties available to buyers who intend to use it as a primary place of residence. These guys obviously have this statement backwards. It's more like people are forced to rent at absurdly high prices due to investors squeezing them out of the market and driving up prices. Data from the 2021 census showed that the proportion of Canadian households who own their home fell from 69% in 2011 to 66.5% in 2021. And there you have it, proof that these homeowners or end users have been squeezed out of the market. Let's check out a couple of charts provided in the study and see what they have to say. So here's the distribution of owners by investor status in the 5 provinces included in the study. And you can see the orange is investor occupant. So of course, someone that lives in the house that is an investor, or there's multiple units and whatnot. We're looking just at the blue, just as pure investors, again, people that don't live in the house themselves. New Brunswick and Nova Scotia have the highest proportion. And again, they have a lot of vacant land out there. So this would have been some vacant land included in this. But Ontario, 20.2%, Manitoba, 20.4%, and British Columbia, 23.3%, not including the owner-occupied investments. And these numbers are actually an understatement. I'm going to get into that in a minute. And here is the proportion of condo apartments used as an investment by the investor. And you can see they're broken down by ownership type, but these are pure investments. Ontario, over 41%. And of course, British Columbia is pretty high, over 35. Same with Nova Scotia, over 35. Manitoba is even very high. It's over 1 in 4 properties, right? It's almost 30%. All I have to say is, wow, these numbers are truly like unbelievable. I didn't expect them to be this high. Over 41% of all condos in Ontario, 35% in BC and Nova Scotia are owned by investors. And as I just stated, these numbers are actually an underestimate due to the limitations on how investors are classified in this study. So looking at the definition of investor from this study, from the same study, an investor is defined as an owner who owns at least one residential property that is not used as their primary place of residence. Individual owners who own a single property in the same province as where they reside are not considered investors, so long as it's not a property with multiple units. So if you live in Ontario or any other province in this study, and you own one property in that same province where you reside, declared it as your primary residence when you purchased it, and never moved in or live with family, it won't be included in this data. Remember, they're not tracking tenant data, they're tracking owner data in this study. So here's a couple of examples from what I mean. You're a young adult with a career living in the GTA, and you buy your first house in a surrounding suburb. You even get the first-time buyer land transfer tax rebate, but the property was just an investment and you continue to live with your parents. You never had any intention of moving in since it was too far to drive, but you wanted to get into the market. This happens a lot and wouldn't be included in this data and isn't included in this data. Or how about a multi-generational family living together and the investor puts the house in the parents' name who never moves in, but now they have a house in their name, still live with their family, and only needed 10% down since it wasn't an investment. Happens all the time, not included in the study. So I guess, in my opinion, these numbers are underestimated. You could add another 5% to pretty much all of the statistics in this study, bringing like Ontario to 25%. So 1 in 4, and even if you don't add that 5%, it's 1 in 5. 20 to 25% of the homes out there, again, not purchased homes, just all homes that are available, are owned by investors, which is pretty astronomical in my opinion. And if you work out the data just from the sales in the last 3 years or so, it's probably something like 50 to 60% of sales went to investors, meaning little or nothing. The minority of the home sales were left to end users, first-time buyers, people moving, families, and whatnot. Even in this report, it mentions investor activity in 2021 and 2022, but it doesn't give the figures. So I guess we have to remember that housing is a basic necessity for human life, food and shelter, right? When investing or speculating disrupts the basic survival needs of a family or a Canadian, it becomes more of a moral issue than a financial one. I'm going to leave it there for this video, but I'll be back on Tuesday with statistics from across the country. So I'll see you then.